know this episode was supposed to be the Prophecy 3, and when I find it again, you'll be the first to know. However, we're going back to 1953 and a 25-year-old Stanley Kubrick making his debut film, a 68-minute feature called Fear and Desire. Well now, this is a Joseph Burston release. I can always trust the man who brought me Bicycle Thieves and Rome Open City.
There is war in this forest. Not a war that has been fought, or one that will be, but any war.
I didn't know that Donald Leroy was working at 13.
And the enemies who struggle here do not exist, unless we call them into being.
Basically, what the droning is implying is that this film is set in a fictitious war in an unidentified country, and we're going to be following 4 soldiers around. Or is it the theatrical version of Blade Runner?
It's one of ours, all right. You can't see us.
Because the stock footage and the sound effects are all we could afford.
If they could spot us, there isn't anything that they could do to help us here.
Here. 6 miles behind the enemy lines.
That's very precise. Where did you learn to speak such exposition?
It isn't very much. Too bad you fellas didn't get your rifles out of the plane.
It's too bad the prop store is closed on Sundays. They head off toward the river with a sweet Crybaby Killer soundtrack. And no, I did not pull that vague 1958 debut of Jack Nicholson out of my ass. The composer for Fear and Desire is literally Gerald Fried. In fact, this was his first feature film as well, and went on to score later Kubrick films, The Killer's Kiss, The Killing, and Paths of Glory. We get incessant rambling of dubbed inner monologues of doubts and concerns as they make it to the riverside. I know that this is in black and white, and it's Kubrick, but I'm still doing this.
Lieutenant! Lieutenant! Come here.
Alright, I think I have to address this. You may have noticed that the copy of this film seems to be of really poor quality. And you're definitely right. Stories abound that Kubrick had spent years acquiring all known prints of the film with the plan of preventing it from ever being seen again, and for years, many believed the film to be completely lost. In the 1980s, a single copy was found in a defunct film storage facility in Puerto Rico, and ever since then the bootlegs flourished, and we wind up with my copy released by Digital History, which is a 16mm to VHS to DVD transfer. The DVD art and cover design just screams bootleg, doesn't it? Also included on the disc are his early documentaries as bonus features. They locate an airstrip and go off hoping to find weapons and supplies, and after killing a few nameless guards, they chow down on some grub.
Kinda cold. Cold's too hard.
Did I mention that Kubrick, being a photographer, set up the lighting without giving any thought for the microphones? Nathan Boxer, who was the film's sound tech, complained about the setup and Kubrick fired him and then added all the sound in post-production. The next morning they run across a woman by the river. That is Virginia Leith, Jan Compton from The Brain That Wouldn't Die, and she isn't the only notable actor in this thing. The film showcases the very early work of Frank Silvera, whom you may have seen as Casper in The Greatest Story Ever Told, and in Roger Corman's The St. Valentine's Day Massacre, and Paul Mazursky. Yeah, that's right, you heard me correctly. Paul Mazursky, the Academy Award-nominated writer, director, and producer of An Unmarried Woman and Harry and Tonto, got his start in the industry acting in this very film.
I hope she doesn't start screaming. She's a pretty little thing.
We might be, horny old pigs.
They go back to fix up the raft and leave Paul to watch over the prisoner. God, this score. How about we use something just as wacky?
Please don't be afraid to like me. Please. That's why they let me stay. They thought you'd like me.
I don't know if you know, Babs, but you're my type of woman.
I stopped them from beating you. Don't scowl. Watch. I'll make you laugh. Look, I'm the general.
He goes slowly insane, and even though they decide to go all Angela from Wreck and not give a reason why, Paul's performance through these lengthy monologues is actually not half bad.
Now do you understand?
Please. The fewer things that remind me of Vukmir and his art, the better.
Why, she wouldn't even harm a fly.
Self-seduced into untying her, Paul kills the girl while she tries to escape. Frank discovers the body, and Paul, well...
The magician did it. Honest.
One whose spells cast 35mm bullets, apparently. He's the laughingstock of the Astari.
I'm going for a swim. Come on in, Mac. Listen to them. It's blood.
We lose Paul to madness, and the rest of the cast begins plans to attack a nearby house, launching enemy soldiers. Frank stands as the diversion and pushes himself down the river, contemplating his fears and desires in life. See what I did there? Alright, clever. We get a monologue from the enemy general shacked up in the house to his dog about evil spirits in the woods, and then we get Frank still rowing and thinking.
Nobody's gonna cry for me later or cheer for me now. Nobody else is me. I know that. Who else but me is buried under the chain of everything I ever did? I didn't mean any of it.
This speech is actually pretty believable. In a strange way, it takes us through the 5 stages of grief, and that might be relatively common by now, but this film was released before Elizabeth Kubler-Ross published the theory in 1969. I'm not saying that this is the film that invented it, it's just a really good use of it. They all assault the house and assassinate the enemy general and his officer, and escape onto the river, making it back to the base the next morning and do some serious contemplation, believing the characters Mac and Sidney are dead.
Do you think you'll come back?
I don't know. I'm not sure yet whether even we've come back.
Last thing in the film is Sidney returning on the raft with Mac, and again dissolving to the woods. And so ends the debut film of Stanley Kubrick, and let me make something perfectly clear. I love Kubrick's films. They are what I consider to be the best filmmaking in every way. But can I really say that for this film? The technical aspects are very standard for the majority of the film, besides the night scenes with the general in the house, which are lit, filmed, and edited extremely well. Due to a budget of roughly $13,000 of personal funds, Kubrick basically did everything himself, just to see if he could do a film. And personally, it wasn't a horrible try. The acting is actually quite good in several scenes. Kenneth Hart plays the dual roles of both Corby and the enemy general in the film, and he's actually quite the versatile actor. Sadly, after a brief string of 7 uncredited and extra roles, his acting career would abruptly end in 1967. Virginia Leigh holds a decent performance, mainly told through her fierce expressions. You will notice, however, how awkward the talking is through the majority of the film, and that is due, as I've said, to the film being shot completely silent and then dubbed over in a sound studio only using the script as help. Now that can be a reason in and of itself, but Kubrick's first wife, Toba Metz, had been the dialogue director on the film, and due to pressures on set and personal issues, Toba and Stanley's marriage kind of crumbled, and you can see that struggle with the direction of the actors. Sometimes you're not sure what emotions these people are going for, seeming more as if getting the lips in perfect sync with the slow, over-enunciated talking is the important bit. And that brings me to the writing. You may think that this script is very, very different than any other Kubrick screenplay, and you're right again. Fear and Desire was the only other script besides Spartacus Kubrick ever made that he didn't write. But this screenplay, written by then newcomer and soon-to-be Pulitzer Prize and Tony Award-winning writer Howard Sackler, is what I compare to the style of F. Scott Fitzgerald. The prose is what makes the story interesting, but transmitting the same prose onto a movie just doesn't work. And it comes off as stiff with no emotional investment. That's why there hasn't been a good movie of The Great Gatsby, because the prose are wonderfully spun and phrased, but the story itself is fucking boring.
So bored I could die.
But thank God Stanley got better at what he did, because if all of his movies were like this, he'd just be the original Eduardo Sanchez, make a half-decent first effort and the rest of their career almost forgotten by history.